Welcome to this month's MacEnterprise.org webcast. I'm Scott Morris, your host and moderator, and I want to remind you viewers that you can submit your questions during the webcast. At the bottom of your webcast window is a small text chat window that you can type in your questions. I'll come back here in the studio and we will answer your questions over the air. Today's webcast actually has two Q&A sessions. Today we have Bao Tran, Senior Systems Engineer for LANrev. He will present first and have a Q&A session at the end of his portion of the webcast. So please go ahead and start entering questions as soon as you have them. And then after Bao Tran, we have Michael Perbix, who is Network Technician for Lower Merion School District. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Well, thanks for joining us. And we're going to start off again with Bao's presentation, and then we'll turn it over to you after his Q&A session. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. Go ahead, Bao.
Okay. And so I'll turn it over now to Bao Tran, again, Senior System Engineer for LANrev. Bao?
Thank you, Scott. So for those of you that haven't heard about LANrev before, this is a little bit about who we are. We are a privately held company based in Addison, Texas. Just our two co-founders alone have over 30 years of experience in the client management space. A lot of the features that you're going to see are customer-driven features that have been requested by customers in the past. So this webcast is going to focus mostly on the new features and changes in LANrev since the last LANrev Mac Enterprise webcast. If you're interested in the rest of the features within LANrev, I highly recommend that you go back and view the archive webcast for the previous LANrev Enterprise webcast. Some of the new things in LANrev since last time, there's new OS support, so that includes support for Mac OS 10.5 Leopard, Windows Vista, and 2008 Server. We've also updated the SMS integration and added support for SECM 2007, which is the latest iteration of SMS. There's also been a lot of changes to the Software Distribution Center, a lot of improvements. You can now create pending software distribution job reports. What that will let you do is get a listing of which software packages have been assigned to agent machines but have not actually been deployed yet. There's also multi-editing of software package definitions, so you can now select multiple packages at the same time and make changes to them. For example, you can change the installation window for a whole group of packages all at once. We've also added installation and restart deadlines for package installations and post-installation actions. Previously, if you allowed your users to actually defer or postpone a restart, what would happen is that they could postpone it indefinitely, 2 years in the future or something, which is not a good thing. So now you can set a deadline, so users cannot postpone past that particular deadline. On the agent side, there's now a progress indicator that you can actually enable so that end users know where the installation actually is in the process. Is it still downloading the software package? Is it currently installing? That way they can decide whether they need to go get a cup of coffee or not, or just wait until it's actually done. There's also a new installation option for CPU architecture for the software packages. Previously, you could have done the same thing with smart software groups, but this is obviously a little bit more convenient and better than the previous feature. Also, on the client side, as you can see by the screenshot in here, there's a new software updates tab where you can get a listing of which software packages have actually been installed by the LANrev agent itself. There's also a Get New Software button right there where the end user themselves can trigger a software package check, as opposed to waiting for the 60 minutes for the LANrev agent to check automatically. There's also been a lot of changes to the reinstall computer command, which is LANrev's disk imaging command. You can now specify disk images on an AFP share as the actual source to re-image the system from. That has two benefits. The first one is that it greatly reduces the amount of free hard drive space required for the disk imaging operation, probably on average by about 40%. The other benefit is that you can specify a disk image on a share that's physically closest to the target machine. Obviously, with 10, 20, 30 gigabyte disk images, you don't want to necessarily send that across your network. There's some the options for the SDC disk images can now be edited. in the reinstall computer command previously, if you define a disk image in the SDC, those options were locked into that disk image. So if you wanted to use the same identical disk image to re-image two separate machines, but you wanted slightly different options, like you wanted to preserve one to preserve users' home folders and the other one to not, you basically had to create duplicate entries in there, which unnecessarily used a lot of hard disk space. So now you can actually change that. On the agent machine itself, there's a progress bar indicator so that the end user knows what's happening. They'll know whether LANrev is still mounting the disk in the act of mounting the disk image, or is it actually deploying and re-imaging the files on the target machine also. There's two new options. One is to preserve the local user accounts, and the other one is to actually migrate the LANrev agent itself. That option is very nice. What it'll allow you to do is basically continue using your existing DMG OS disk images without having to rebuild them to add the LANrev client itself. One of the exciting new features in LANrev, and the new version of LANrev, is the time machine integration. So there's three facets to that. The first is that there's 8 new time machine related information items. You can see in the screenshot here, some of those information items are whether the time machine auto backup is enabled, when the last time machine backup was, or the oldest time machine backup. There's also a time machine command to remotely start and stop a backup, as well as enable and disable the automatic backup feature for time machine. The reinstall computer command now supports letting you roll back your Mac to a particular time machine backup set. Normally, if you were going to do this locally, you would have to basically reboot the machine and boot up from the original Leopard installation CDs or DVDs. But LANrev will actually let you do this remotely over the network without having to do that. So that's very nice. Also, a new feature in LANrev is custom information fields with script support. What this will let you do is actually inventory anything that you can pull out as a text string on target machines using one of these methods that are outlined here. So for Macs, you can define a custom information item and attach either a shell script, an Apple script, or a plist setting. On the PC side, you can attach a batch script, a VB script, or a registry setting, and both of them will actually accept an executable file also. Script execution has changed a little bit in LANrev. We've sort of combined some of the script commands into one main execute script command, so there's no more execute Apple script, execute shell script commands. They've been combined into execute script, basically. And we've added support for batch files and VB scripts also on the PC side. There's also a new option to actually view consolidated results of script execution immediately. What that means is that you can issue a shell script to 10 machines at the same time and view all of the results from all 10 machines in one main results window. There's been some security changes to LANrev. It used to be that you could only restrict which commands the a LANrev administrator account had access to. Now you can also restrict their access to the various administrator windows, such as the Software Distribution Center, as well as the License Monitoring Center, or the Administrator Center. So you can pretty much lock down everything within LANrev. So there's about 25 new assignable rights that limit an administrator's access to the various center windows. In addition to that, you can also save these sets of command privileges and center rights as a profile and reapply them to new admin user accounts. It was a request that we got. It was a very common request from end users. What was happening was that they had to create multiple administrator accounts, but it was a little bit tedious to uncheck, 10 or 15 items. There have been some new commands as well as changes to some old commands. Some of those include the transfer and file folder command now accepts the deployment of DMG disk images that include applications on them. So if you actually specify a DMG disk image that includes an application on it, this command will deploy it just like as if you had tried to add it to the Software Distribution Center. So if there's an applications folder at the root level of that DMG, that's where LANrev will put that particular file on the target machine itself. There's a new search Windows